If you have to chase him, then he isn't worth catching. And he shouldn't have put you in a position that you have to even chase him to begin with. But the reality is that life happens, and there's so many different reasons why women find themselves chasing a man, pursuing a man. And some of you may not even realize that you're chasing. You might just think you're doing your part in trying to make things happen. And I applaud your willingness to put yourself out there and be vulnerable. But you have to understand the dangers of chasing a man and the fact that he's not the one for you. And I'm going to break it all down so that you can clearly see the pitfalls here, why he isn't that guy, when he might just be that guy, and just everything you need to understand about this dynamic. So the first thing I want you to consider is he really worth your time? I say this because I see so many scenarios, and let me add this. It's not even just chasing. It's also holding on for dear life to the desire of being with this certain specific man, all right? And I see this scenario with women where what you're trying to hold on to, what you're trying to chase is a guy that when you really break it all down, it ain't really worth it, right? And that's not to even insult the men that you may hold in high regard, but it is to put in perspective that sometimes you get lost and caught up desiring an individual who isn't even truly best for you. So when I say he's not worth it, let's look at it from a couple angles. Number one, let's just look at it from the fact that he doesn't properly fit into your life. So here's the thing. There might be a man that you think highly of, that you really like, and that maybe when you fantasize about the situation, you really want to be with this guy, right? And you don't see any reason not to want to be with this guy. But you're not considering the fact that despite his great qualities, he doesn't really fit in with you. And what tends to happen is that a woman is fantasizing about what she believes it could be, not who he actually is, not what he's actually presenting. It's what you feel like you see in this man that maybe you think you can bring out of him, or that you would be able to experience with him if you were in his life or were having a relationship with him. And I always say, listen, don't date someone's potential, date their reality. It doesn't mean some people don't have great potential. It doesn't mean some people won't reach their potential. The reality, unfortunately, is that many do not. Many do not, or even if they could, they may not reach it with you. Why? Because again, they're not a good fit. Good man does not mean right man. Does not mean the man that you can actually share your life with. So you've got to take a step back and understand, are you pursuing the resume on paper? Are you pursuing and holding on to, again, the idea of him and what you think he could be? Or are you accepting the reality of who he is and the fact that you are in a situation where he is not being either receptive to your interests, or he is not pursuing you on his at all either, all right? Because again, if he's that great and he's not even trying to engage in this courting with you, then you're only shooting yourself in the foot and wasting your time. So there's that aspect, the fact that he's simply not a good fit despite being a great guy. But then there's also the angle of he's just not that great to begin with. And let's not act like we don't see this. Even if this isn't you specifically going through this, I'm sure if you think about it, you can think of a friend, a family member, someone you've known, acquaintance, that was all into a man, maybe chasing and pursuing, maybe just holding on to the idea of being with him. And when you look at the guy, it's like, for what? Like, what are you doing? And if you are that woman, I don't want you to feel bad. I'm trying to kind of wake you up, because again, it's so easy to fall into this pattern of overlooking the red flags, overlooking the real issues that exist because you want this so bad. And your desire for wanting it stems from deeper rooted issues that you're not properly addressing. Now, we'll get more into that a little bit later. But I really want you to understand that when you find yourself locked into this guy, what are you really holding on to? And why? Why this man? What's so special? If you have to, write it down on a piece of paper. And I'm telling you this because, again, I want you to be able to have clarity in this situation to understand what is actually going on here. Because when I see women getting caught up in chasing or, again, holding on to this man, I see a woman who's not thinking clearly, all right, and not understanding what she is getting herself into. Another thing I want you to consider that we're going to lead into right now is, are you chasing love or are you chasing attention? All right. Now, again, there's some other things to discuss, but let's focus on this: love or attention. The reason why I felt the need to bring this up. Well, first, let me give an example or a story. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the show Family Matters. I believe that's the right. Yeah, Family Matters. That's the show with Steve Urkel and Laura and the Winslows, whatever, right? And so in the show, if you guys remember, Steve Urkel was all chasing Laura and wanted her badly. And she would always reject him. She didn't want him. You know, he's this nerdy kid, whatever. But then once Steve took his attention away from Laura, and then even took it further, gave his attention to another woman, Laura found herself wanting Steve. Now, some people will look at that and say, well, it's that you don't know what you had until it's gone, right? No, that's not what's going on there. What's going on there is sometimes as a woman, and this can happen to men too, despite your lack of desire for that person, their attention makes you feel good. All right. Their desire for you makes you feel good. So it's kind of like you enjoy, you're annoyed by it to a certain extent, but you kind of like it to a certain extent. Okay. And I'm not saying every situation. Sometimes it's flat out, you don't want none of that attention, and the story. But I think from harmless individuals, sometimes it can feed the ego. It can feed the self-esteem. It feels good to a certain extent. Now, once it is taken away from you, it creates a void because that's no longer there. You're no longer getting your hit. It's almost like crack. I don't know what crack is really like, but I'm just assuming it's like crack. But anyways, they take it away from you, and now you want it. And then what unfortunately happens in the dynamic of relationships is you now start to confuse your desire to have that energy, that attention being given back to you as, oh my gosh, I have feelings for this man. Oh my gosh, maybe I do love him. Oh my gosh, maybe I should be with him. Hell no. No. You are just craving the attention and desire he was giving you. And so you have to be careful to not confuse this with love. Listen, if it was, and let me take a step back and say this real quick. Do I think it is possible for a woman to have not fully embraced a man's efforts and his attention and his desire, right? And then when it was taken away, wake up to the reality of, dang, I am into this guy. I think it's possible on the premise of sometimes a woman is extremely guarded, and her fear of being vulnerable and letting that man in causes her to reject his attempts, his attention, so on and so forth. And there's a part of her, part of you, that may have not processed the fact that at some point this man is going to give up. This man's going to go away. And so in a way, you're taking for granted his love, his attention, his desire. And then once it's gone, it snaps you out of that fear, so to speak, or it shifts you into a different type of fear of, oh my gosh, rather than I'm afraid to open up to him, I'm afraid of the reality that I've lost him. And this can now awaken in you or open the doors to you allowing this man in. So that is a possible scenario. But what you have to understand as trying to decipher which one it is what was at the root of your lack of desire. Only you can answer that. So in the Steve Urkel Family Matters example, we don't know Laura. We don't know how her mind or where her mind was, but we can assume that her lack of desire was a lack of attraction, his nerdiness, so on and so forth. So there's no reason for me to believe that her now feeling some kind of way and wanting him is due to genuine love now being awakened or being allowed to be fruitful in the situation. Whereas if you have a guy that, no, you were attracted to him, you actually did like him, you actually had a level of desire, but again, you struggle with allowing yourself to embrace it. Now we can make the argument that this is a genuine transition that has occurred. But going back to the original main point, you've got to make sure that in the scenarios where you find yourself chasing this guy or again, holding on to this guy, is it about love or his attention? Now, here's something else that hit my spirit that I need to mention. Also ask yourself, is it love or is it guilt? So here's the other thing that happens to a lot of women. Sometimes you're dealing with a guy, whether you like him or not, there may be some desire there, whatever the case may be. And maybe you're dating him, you're getting to know him. But at some point, you feel like you messed up. You made a mistake that hurt him. You made a mistake that pushed him away, or a decision on your part that maybe you thought at that time was a good idea and it wasn't. And now you find yourself desperately wanting him because you desperately want to make things right. You desperately want to correct the wrongs. You're being fueled by your guilt of what happened in the situation, not actual love of the man, not actual connection, not true desire that's going to create a healthy relationship. No, you just don't want this situation to end on the note that you made a mistake. Now listen, I understand it's a hard pill to swallow when we feel like we pushed away someone of quality or a quote unquote good thing. Doesn't mean it was the right thing. So it may be a blessing that you pushed him away or whatever the case may be. However, it's still a hard pill to swallow at that time. And it gets harder to swallow when we feel like we haven't found a better option, when we feel like things are not panning out for us. And so now we start thinking back to that person that was good, but again, it didn't work out because we did things wrong, or we at least start to perceive it as something about us that we could have done better, right? And it may be accurate that we contributed to the problem, but you've got to understand the difference between, again, guilt, fear, loneliness, these things creating a desire of this man that is not rooted in truly being with that specific man. And you cannot allow the guilt to trap you. And now, again, because things like guilt and even the need for attention can create this pattern of constantly thinking about him, constantly wanting him around, that can fool you into thinking, I love him. No, you don't. It's just an unhealthy attachment. And you got to recognize when you're dealing with unhealthy attachments in this situation that is causing you to, again, either chase or hold on to this man that you need to let go of. All right, so we've now considered, is he really worth your time? We've considered, are you chasing love or attention, or is it guilt, unhealthy attachment? But let's consider the fact that for a second, even though I'm telling you stop chasing him, and that still holds true, but I also put on the title, he's not the one for you. But consider this for a second. Maybe he is the right guy, but it's not the right time. So here's the thing. I do firmly believe in right person, wrong time. There are tons of people out there who may disagree. You're more than welcome to leave your comment below on what your thoughts are if you agree with the right person, wrong time. But let me break it down for you like this. I think that I've seen it for myself, and I believe it from what I understand from a spiritual perspective, that we may cross paths in life. And some people will immediately jump in and say, well, why would you cross paths with someone who isn't right for you? Why essentially would God bring them into your life when it's not time for it? Well, maybe it's to wake you up. Maybe it's to show you the blessing that exists, but the preparation that's going to be required to properly receive and sustain that blessing. So you got to understand that as individuals, as human beings, we are at different points in our life. And sometimes we have experienced a lot of hurt and disappointment. Almost everybody has to some extent. Some have healed and moved past it. Some are still dwelling in it. That might be you. And unfortunately, when we then cross paths with that person, we can't simply assume that finding the right person makes everything else right. It doesn't mean all the circumstances will be what it needs to be. It doesn't mean what's going on within us, lack of healing, and other issues that we might be working through are going to magically disappear because we now met the right person. No, in actuality, if you try to move forward with this right individual, with this right man, when it is not properly timed to make things happen. And when I say properly timed, look at it like this, because even if you don't want to look at it from a spiritual timing, look at it from a foundational timing, all right? If the proper foundation has not been set, and that's you knowing yourself, that's you being healed, that's you truly being in a place to fully open your heart, be vulnerable, and embrace love at its fullest, because that's what's going to be required to have a healthy, amazing relationship with the right person. So when that foundation is not completely properly in place, if you try to have a relationship with that quote unquote right person, it can still turn toxic. Don't get it twisted. Right person does not guarantee nothing goes wrong. It does not guarantee that we will not have battles. It just means that this is the person we can fight the battles with. But again, we may not have been properly trained. It's almost like someone going to the army. They ain't even been through boot camp yet, and you want to throw them at the front line of the war. They're not ready for that. They need a level of training. And unfortunately, because it is very common for individuals to start to give up hope that the right one even exists, it's very easy for us to now stop or lose sight of the preparation that's needed, okay? And lose sight of what we should be doing in our life to make sure we can have success when the time comes. And so I've seen plenty of couples where they met, let's say, in their 20s. Not that it always happens in your 20s, it can happen in your 30s. But the point is, they met, let's say, in their 20s, let's say in college, just in this example, and they both lacked maturity. They both lacked an understanding of how to properly navigate things, and it led to them falling apart. But then let's say in this example that I'm thinking about, after 7 years apart, they went their separate ways, but they got themselves together. Now, in this situation, I'm not going to say they got themselves together thinking I'm doing it expecting to meet my right person again, right? But they did it for themselves. They did it for their own self-growth. And then they happened to come back around, and now they were able to come together and have an amazing relationship. And what I firmly believe is that when we have a genuine connection, when they are that quote-unquote right person, it always comes back around. It always shows itself when opportunity comes to you once again. The issue for most people is that when the opportunity comes back around, are you still not ready? Or have you now gotten yourself in relationships you don't belong in? Have you now added other factors to the situation? Kids now, a marriage, all these, you moved to a different place maybe you don't even belong in. There's so many now additional barriers that have been created because people just went about doing things their own way rather than keeping sight of doing what's truly best for them from within, truly finding themselves, healing, but even more importantly, as I always believe, talking and trusting God. Talking to God and trusting Him and finding out what God wants you to do in the situation. So all that to say, listen, even if he's the right guy, right? And it's just right guy, wrong time. Chasing and holding on to that's not going to work. And when I say holding on to that's not going to work, actively holding on to it. It doesn't mean I want you to eliminate all hope in your mind. Because I think when we truly love someone, when we have a connection, there's always going to be something in us that has a little hope left, right? But what I'm asking you to do is to not put the situation in your hands, to go to God, to trust God, to lean on God's guidance, to also focus on how do you get to a better place so that when the time is right, you too can make this whole thing work. And understand that our timing is never better than God's timing. So you've got to be patient in the process. But again, you have to be in a process of preparation, not just let me just do whatever I want and think everything's going to work itself out. Now, an additional thing to kind of help you evaluate, are you simply dealing with someone who's not for you, or is he the right guy? And that is to get your copy of the book, The Man God Has For You, 7 Traits to Help You Determine Your Life Partner. It is a best-selling book. Thousands of reviews on my site and on Amazon. You can get your copy below. Click the link in the description or in the comment section, or go to themangodhasforyou.com. So let's keep this going. A few more things that I felt needed to be highlighted and I want you to consider and remember is, number one, the other reason why chasing is so bad and or overly pursuing is because when you do, you will overlook the red flags. So I mentioned it earlier, but let's talk more about it. The unfortunate reality is that what I've seen with a lot of women is that once a woman decides, for whatever reason, she wants this man, she wants to make it work, there is a tendency to now rationalize past red flags or overlook them. It really isn't an issue of not seeing them. Women, I say this with all confidence, y'all are smart as hell. And when I say smart as hell, you ladies pick up on everything. You catch it. Things don't really get past a woman. The issue becomes, will she embrace what she's seeing? Will she embrace her intuition? Will she allow herself to accept the reality of the red flags? Not that she simply doesn't see it. Now, again, I don't want to rule out the exception to the rule and say maybe there are some situations where the woman completely saw nothing. Anything is possible. But in most cases, you saw something or you will see something. And so when you get too locked in, and that's why I wanted to make clear that chasing isn't just how some of you are processing it, this active pursuit of this man. I also want you to think of it from a mental and emotional standpoint of, in your head, you're overly pursuing. In your head, you're overly locked into this guy, all right? To the point where, again, you are ignoring everything. Now, I feel the need to say this because, again, it's hitting my spirit. I don't want you to confuse the words being overly locked in or overly pursuing with the reality that if you are dealing with a man who is pouring back into you, you're good. If you truly feel this is the right guy, you're in the right place, and we'll talk about how to really, another thing to do to figure that out, then okay. Because there is a level, you have to be vulnerable, you have to be completely open. I think the key point is he's pouring back into you. He is receptive to what you are giving to him, and he's giving it back. That is the key to understanding the difference between when you're over pursuing and when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. All right? And we have to understand that. But even in a situation where you feel like the man is pouring into you, I want you to pour back. I want you to be completely open, but I don't want you to be blind. I don't want you to make excuses for issues. And consider this. Sometimes addressing because sometimes we don't want to address the issue. And I say we because I think it's a human issue. We don't want to address the issue because we don't want to rock the boat. We don't want to throw off what we feel is a good thing right now, or we don't want to scare off the person. So we fear bringing this issue up. And maybe because you've experienced that when you try to address issues and red flags, you got backlash, you got negative reactions. But I say to you now, if he is truly right for you, if he is truly serious about you, he's not going to have an issue with you addressing what you are perceiving as a red flag. And when it's all said and done, it may have just been a misunderstanding. It may be an easily correctable issue for him. Once he understands what you need and what you're looking for, he's into you, he'll make adjustments. But you've got to address it. So Do not get so locked in that you become blind to it. But I do want you to fully pour into this man if he is pouring into you. But getting back to the main point, when you chase, it is very easy to lose sight of things. And that's why you want to be mindful. Move forward with your eyes open and be aware and be honest with yourself about what you're feeling and what you're seeing in that situation. Now, here's another thing to consider, all right? Whether he is or he is not the one for you. If you have a strong desire for this man, though I am telling you not to chase him, I do want you to let him know how you feel. Now, some of y'all might have just said, oh, hell no. I ain't putting myself out there like that. Relax. Listen. You have to be willing, or you should be willing to present your interest, to present your desire, to let it be known. Because there are many situations that if a woman just spoke up, she would have gotten everything she was hoping for. But in being closed off and being fearful and not being transparent, she has either caused damage or self-sabotaged that situation in some way, shape, or form. And so understand that the man who desires you or has interest in you, he wants to hear that from you as well. And I know it can be scary. I know it can be tough. But you've got to be willing to open up and do it. But here's the beautiful thing about you letting him know how you feel. And let me say this before I mention the beautiful thing, because I already hear y'all in the back of my mind saying, if I let him know how I feel and he doesn't feel that way about me, he will use it to his advantage to play me. Yes and no. Number one, not every man's going to do that. Will some men do that? Yes. But he can only play you if you allow it. Meaning, even if he tries to use this information to his advantage, knowing you have high desire for him, the key is always paying attention. Is he matching your energy? Is he reciprocating your desire? Is he making the efforts you make? Is he pouring back into you? If he's not doing that, then yes, whether you let him know how you feel or not, you shouldn't be dealing with him. If he's unwilling to give back to you the way you give to him in this essence of the effort, the energy, the love, the positivity, and things of that nature, then don't bother with him. But that should not be the reason to let him know how you feel, because that's not what determines him actually playing you and how that plays out. But going back to why it's such a beautiful thing is because it is one of the great ways to actually weed out who is really into you and who isn't. Because let me tell you this, don't women have this fear of, if I let him know I'm really into him and he's not, he's going to try to play me. Most men don't want to try to play, they don't want to try to hold on to this woman who's being all deeply into them. I say most, I didn't say all. but most, because that is too messy. That's too much. He'd rather deal with a more detached woman. He'd rather deal with a woman who can quote unquote play her position, accept the casualness that he desires, and not be all into him and all wants more out of him. Okay? That's the preferred route when a guy's just trying to be casual and have fun and whatever the case may be. So in actuality, you letting him know you feel this way, if that's how you generally feel about him, and he does not feel that way, you actually can push a lot of men out the door. You can actually allow yourself to not have your time be as wasted, because these men will look for a quote unquote easier target or easier to deal with woman in the sense of what is going to be expected and required emotionally. All right. But on the flip side, if he is into you, you've now strengthened the relationship or the potential of it. You've now allowed him to feel desired and validated and feel more secure about pouring into you, because now he knows I'm pouring into a woman that wants me the same way I want her. And that gives him confidence, that gives him freedom. So you actually are allowing yourself to see better results by being willing to let the man know how you feel. All right, so I got 2 more points I want to make. And so one, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but let's talk about it real quick. Your healing is blinding you. So when I see a woman who's chasing, overly locked in, getting caught up in these situations, I don't think I've ever seen this with a woman that truly, fully healed from her past. That's just the reality of it. Again, I think when a woman is healed, she can be present in the situation. She can allow herself to be vulnerable and open. All right. She is willing to show that desire, all these things that I think are healthy and necessary. But she doesn't lose herself in the situation. Because chasing, overly pursuing, getting overly locked in, you lose yourself when you do that. Or it's very easy to do that. That's what happens to most people. All right. And so this will not happen when you have the strength or when you have gone through the process of healing from your past. Notice I keep saying your past, not your previous relationship, not just men you have romantic dealings with. No, your past. That means childhood too. Parents, siblings, friends, anything that hurt you. It is necessary to ensure or to make sure that you go through the process of getting that out of your system, because those broken childhoods lead to broken relationships, lead to broken marriages, lead to entertaining people who don't belong in your life, lead to trying to hold on to a man who isn't worth your time. This is the result of not facing our hurt. So I know it can be scary, but it is a necessary part of the process if you are either in the situation right now where you feel like you are essentially chasing by the way that I've explained it, or to ensure that you don't find yourself in that situation. Okay? So I encourage you to go through that. It's another book. I'm just going to mention it, Love After Heartbreak. I'm not going to show it right now, but another book you can check out on my site, which will give you the process to healing. But make sure, regardless of chasing or not, healing is the key to your success in life. And so I highly encourage you to embrace it. Now, last but not least, if you know me, then you know it was going to come up at some point. What does God have to say about this? That, to me, is possibly the most important thing, aside from healing, is you connecting with what does God want you to do? Because I'll say this right now with a lot of confidence, all right? And I could be wrong, but I believe I'm not. and that is, God did not put you, the woman, to be chasing no man on this earth. Plain and simple. That is not to say that I think men should be chasing women. Let me just get that out the way real quick. I do not believe in chasing either way. I believe in two people running towards each other to build a healthy and amazing relationship. Two people putting a mutual effort to build a healthy and amazing relationship. No one should be chasing, right? But again, let's just focus on you. God did not put you here to be chasing. So when I see a woman behaving in this way, what comes to me, or what I start to think, is you are not consulting with God. You are not praying. You are allowing your emotions to get the best of you rather than taking a step back, going in prayer and seeking guidance on how to move forward. Now, I have seen situations where women will say to me, God told me this is my husband, or God told me this is the man for me. I'm not here to argue with anyone on if they genuinely feel God said this is the one for them. My only questions or concerns are, one, did you come to that conclusion based off interpretation of signs and events? Or is that the answer you received in your spirit? All right? Because I've seen a lot of people put together all kinds of puzzle pieces that didn't really fit to come to the conclusion they wanted, rather than really be able to go in prayer and say, no, this is what I got within my spirit. All right? Number two, even if God did say that's your guy, what did God say about handling the situation? How to proceed in it? So again, could it be right guy, wrong time? Could it be, okay, that's the guy for you, but God is not telling you to chase the man. There's some other things you got to do to make this all play out and work out the way that it needs to work out. So if you're going to say to me, I did talk to God, I do believe this is the man for me. All right, then the next question to ask in prayer is, how do I proceed? What is the role I have to play in this situation? And sometimes, many times possibly, God will tell you to chill out, relax. It'll be taken care of. But there's still other things you're going to have to do. So either way, I do believe there's always a role that we play in bringing forth our blessing, so to speak, or getting to our blessing. All right. And then the last thing I'm going to mention about this God piece is make sure you're not scapegoating God. All right. I want you to go to God. I want you to pray. I want you to embrace the spiritual aspect of living your life to your fullest. However, I do not want you to hide behind God. I do not want you to use God as a shield to defend and validate actions and behaviors that he didn't really co-sign. All right. And again, I'm saying co-sign as you, just as long as you can say to me, you went in prayer and talked about this to God, so be it. I'm not arguing with anything like that because I don't know. I'm not in your prayer to tell you didn't hear that or you did hear this, whatever the case may be. Only you know the truth. But make sure you're doing it from a genuine heart and you're taking the right approach to gaining the clarity that you need so that you won't find yourself chasing men who don't belong in your life and that you will understand when he's simply not the one for you. Hey, thank you for watching this video. Be sure to check this one out right here and I'll see you there. There's a quote that says, they will ignore you until they need you. And that's as real as it gets. But the reality is that being ignored is a very stressful, hurtful experience that can